You've selected a show from the Podcast Jukebox, a DIY podcast network.
It's Will Shawn Podcast. The internet cried out for 2 more blowhards, and they courageously answered that call. Armed with the weapon of wit, each week they're joined by guests to discuss movies, television, pop culture, and anything else that's pissing them off. Take it away, boys.
I'm Will Link.
And I'm Sean David.
And this is Will Shawn Podcast.
Please hold. Longer than Ralph Garman, apparently. R.I.P. Well, he's still alive. How you doing, Will?
That was sad news today here in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Radio personality Ralph Garman,
who was the third man on the Kevin and Bean show for the last 18 years, was unceremoniously shit-canned. And I don't know, it's just a very sad day for people that grew up in L.A. and listen to Kevin and Bean, and people who moved here and love that morning show, so whatever. So what's up?
I am very excited that one of my favorite Twitter personalities...
Dana Schwartz?
No, Mark Harris.
Okay.
Is now following me.
He followed you?
He's following me.
Because I saw you retweeted you, and that was big news.
I don't know, and now, but here's the problem.
Yeah?
Now... I feel
Is this
such
a gay
pressure.
panic thing?
No,
Okay.
no. I feel such pressure to tweet better, to send more like intelligent tweets, and I have a feeling I am going to fail in that task. I feel I've censored myself.
Well, you did rip the embargo right off of Steven Spielberg's new film, The Post.
That's true. I
Yeah.
did. Hey, I said it was great. What more do they
Listen,
want
that's a quality follow. Put that on your tombstone. Followed by Mark Harris.
So what's going on in the world of Will Shawn Podcast?
We've been off. What's going on? I feel like we're all like on a weird schedule.
We've been kind of an every other week thing.
Yeah, the holidays are shitty. Want to continue to thank everyone for listening to us. Make sure you are subscribed to us on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Let's see. Former guests Sean Baker and Chris Bergach, who's from The Florida Project, won Best Director for the New York Critics Association.
That's fantastic.
That's fantastic. And Justin Marks, who came on to talk about
The Jungle Book.
The Jungle Book. Hollywood A-list writer Justin Marks has a new show premiering on Starz next month called Counterpart, and the trailer came out today. So I'm going to reach out to him. Hopefully, maybe we can get him on the show early next year to talk about Counterpart.
And of course, the usual.
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter.
I said all that.
Did you say
Yeah,
that?
top of the show.
I have tuned you out.
Thank you. I see how this works. Okay. Okay. You know what, people? Hitler had some good ideas.
Who is the sponsor this week?
Mazel tov to Prince Henry of Windsor and Meghan Markle of Suits. May they build a bias Neman B'Israel, which exactly 3 people are laughing at that joke right now.
And I am not one of them.
No, because you are not an Orthodox Jew.
On the show this week, we took a week off. Guess what? 5,000 more sexual harassment allegations and...
Allegations?
Well, some allegations, some not allegations.
Listen, will those of us who do not have a rape lock built into their office door press the first button?
We will discuss all the other horrible things that have been happening. Also, podcasts. We listen to them. We're on a network from them. They're becoming the new thing where there's too many of them.
Yeah, we're a peak podcast.
We will discuss. And do you want to build a snowman?
Nope.
And I will tell you why PIXAR pissed me off this week.
Other than John Lasseter being a rapey boy.
But first, we are very excited to have with us a returning champion from one of the Jukebox Podcast Network shows.
Oh, I should have mentioned that at the top of the show.
Off the cuffs. We're very happy to have back with us Minimus Maximus.
Hello.
How's it?
What the...
You hung up on him.
Hold on.
You hung up on him again. Why did you hang up?
There was a call coming in. Hold on. What was this?
Why? Just don't take the call.
Is that him?
I have no idea.
That looks about right.
I said hello and the call dropped.
Hi, sorry. No, I pressed a button by accident. We're still here. I'm not editing any of this out.
No.
That was good podcasting. Welcome, MM.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me back.
Yes.
So, Max, you have been on the show before, but let's refresh people. We always like to get the guest origin story. And the last time you were on with Dick Wound, so we had a lot of back and forth, but now we want to concentrate on you. Are you?
Okay.
You're out there on Long Island. Have you always been from Long Island?
No, I grew up all over the world, which I think was the origin story we wanted to get into this week.
Yes.
Yes, this is... I guess what I'm plugging is I'm appearing on the new unnamed show for the Podcast Jukebox Network that's coming out in the new year. The Weird True Tales show, and I just taped my episode 2 days ago. I'm a cult survivor.
Okay, yes, I had heard this.
Yeah, it's not something I really have spent a lot of time talking about publicly, so I'm kind of coming out on starting to talk about it.
So let's get into it.
Yeah, what made you want to start talking about this past of yours? Is it just a way that you're kind of dealing with it, or why? Why now?
Yeah, it obviously was kind of always hung over me, and I never even really thought about it at all until I was in my early 20s, which was 20 years ago now, and started understanding how much it shaped me. And I guess I've spent the past 20 years just kind of coming to my own terms with it, now that Off the Cuffs has been going on, and there's been some level of success with that, and I'm a little more, I'm still under a pseudonym, and you guys follow me on Twitter, you've seen my face is masked.
Yeah.
I'm a little more in the public eye. That I just felt it was time that I start talking about like how this was part of my makeup. This is my origin story. So,
can you tell us? And I know you probably want to save some of this for the brand new episode of the new podcast that's coming out. But what can you tell us about the cult that you were part of?
Oh, sure. I was in the Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh cult.
Sure.
They were the commune in Oregon in the 80s. I don't know if anybody remembers that. I lived on that commune from ages 7 to 9, and it was this kind of weird mix of hippie philosophy, Indian, Eastern, meditation philosophy, and with just a pinch of doomsday cult preparedness thrown in.
Okay.
Well, you need that pinch.
What's that?
You need that pinch of doomsday cultness.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't
gives it the
full-on, survival.
Yeah.
But, there was this, one of the philosophies going on was that the world was going to end, 2/3 of the world's population were going to die, but we would be safe.
Well, why?
Because we had the one true way.
Okay, that's what I was going to
clearly.
ask, yes.
MSNBC.
So now, how long were you part of this cult?
Well, I was born into it. And I was actually fully in living on the commune with my parents, but not being raised by my parents because I was raised communally, from ages 7 to 9. But before that, I had lived a couple times in the first ashram they had in India, and even when my parents and I were living in Brooklyn, they were still members, and it was like, just being raised with any other religion. You went to church once a week. I had to go to the meditation center and meditate at 6 years old.
Oh, jeez.
So was this something?
Really fully, fully, completely immersed. For about 2 years when I was 7 to 9 years old.
Was this something that your parents eventually drifted away from, or how did you quote unquote get out of it?
Yes. Okay. I don't know how familiar you are with the story of this cult.
Nope.
No, not.
Okay.
I'm not.
One of the leaders actually planned a terrorist attack.
Oh.
They poisoned a salad bar
Worst
where
soup plantation
the Attorney
ever.
General of Oregon was eating, because there were like legal issues. So they decided that bioterrorism would be the best route to fight legally. And I believe I'm not 100% on this, but I believe it was the largest scale terror attack in American history before 9/11.
Really?
Yeah. Something like 19 people wound up with food poisoning from this thing. But that wasn't the actual leader. That was his right-hand woman. And when the heat was coming down and she was going to be arrested for this, she fled the country. And among the members of her inner circle were my mother. My mother was among the members of her inner circle. So
Wow.
my mother took me in tow, and we did flee the country for about a year. Lived in Greece, lived in Germany. Now, this was completely legal. We had passports. We took commercial flights. So I'm not...
I was going to say, was your mother, like, being actively pursued, or was she just leaving because this woman had
Because
left?
the heat was on.
People that were being actively pursued, but she wasn't involved. She wasn't implicated.
Okay.
She had nothing to do with the terror attack. It was just they had asked my mother to come with her and I'm not even sure what the reason was. And like pretty quickly after we left, it started falling apart. Because there was no organizational structure to the commune anymore, and the police were coming. The leader was eventually arrested on an immigration charge. And did some jail time, which was, I mentioned this on the other show. It was always kind of funny to see like pictures of him like working at a prison farm, but like still wearing the beard and the trappings and but in like prison grays. But yeah, that was it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, so how long ago was this now again?
This would have been the mid-'80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this seems like something, though, that, like, because of the past and running around and being part of this thing that, I mean, you clearly, I could tell by just listening to you still carry this deeply with you. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
you're from Long Island, so
yes.
like Long Island's kind of a normal place.
Yeah.
Is it?
Relatively speaking.
It's that other side of normal, And I live out on the East End, so in 1987, when I finally settled here, it was even more rural. So, I spent the rest of my childhood, my teen years, because I was 10 when I moved to Long Island, just having this like weird sort of otherness on me, on like, not many people have this experience to begin with. And especially nobody in a small farming town on the east end of Long Island is going to have this experience.
Yeah, it's not the most relatable thing to be talking to people.
You didn't grow up in a cult, Will?
No cult.
Lame.
The closest I've come is I've met Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormon. Well, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons.
Well, yeah, and we've talked to Scientologists before on the show.
Oh, yeah, I've met some
like,
ex-Scientologists.
Which that seems,
But that's like a cult with a little bit of legitimacy and, superstructure around it.
Yeah, but that's kind of what makes it scary.
Rajneesh had that. There was a big bid in the 80s, and like I found this out years later, obviously. One of the reasons that they were so adamant about starting the commune in Oregon is because they wanted to get status as a religion
Okay.
For the tax breaks, the financial rewards on that. That's why the commune in Oregon, and like there were very specific rules around that. We had to wear red clothing.
Red.
We
It's
had
like
to
Handmaid's
wear
Tale.
mala necklaces with the picture of the guru on them. So there was like a structure. It's funny. I watched some of the Scientology documentary that Leah Remini made.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff was, I could watch it, but a lot of it was very triggering because, when she was just talking about like what Scientology leaders will tell you.
Well, there's a definite pattern with all this stuff, and you watch a show like Leah Remini's. I'd imagine that stuff. She's talking about Scientology and this giant thing that is Scientology, but it applies to people trying to escape any cult or oppressive religious beliefs or things like that. So it's I got to imagine it's pretty powerful, and it feels like we're at a time, and I know you're opening up about it more now, but it also feels like we're at a time when, because of shows like Leah Remini's and because of all these people who've come out against Scientology, it's almost, would you say we're at a time where it's becoming easier for people to admit they've had these stories and these backgrounds and talk about it?
Yeah. I mean, I think, that's definitely one of the reasons that I didn't talk about it for years. I mean, and, this is true of any kind of childhood trauma that you go through, is that I carried around all this guilt about it, even though, like I said, I was born into this thing. I didn't make this decision. But it's, like I was saying, it's so hard for, just to find people to be able to relate to this kind of thing. But I think, with like the Scientology thing and,
it makes it,
honestly, who's the actor? Joaquin Phoenix. He was raised in the Children of God.
That's right.
And his brother died, so, look at that.
He's talked pretty openly about how fucked up that was.
I want to talk a little bit while we're in this portion of the show about also off the cuffs. But I want to ask a question. Do you think, how do you think, off the cuffs, for the people who don't know, it's a podcast about BDSM, about that world. You interview people. You do these great interviews with people discussing various kinks and a million other things. So obviously you have an involvement in the BDSM world. Is there anything that you think... I don't know how to... I'm not sure what I'm trying to ask here, but is there anything from your background that you think brought you to... And I'm not trying to say BDSM is a cult by any means, but brought you to find another community of people who are kind of on the outside or on the edges of society in a way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of the things we always say on our show is kink is not therapy, but it can be therapeutic. And in a lot of ways, it was a way for me to find a kind of community of people that maybe didn't have the same experience, but had their own. And again, I don't want to 50 Shades it here and say that everybody involved in BDSM or kink is broken,
Yeah.
But
a chunk of them.
But they had their own weird shit that they were dealing with, even just by saying, "Oh, I'm into spanking," or blogging or whatever. So it was, in a lot of ways, because I found BDSM around the time I started talking about this stuff openly. I was in my early 20s, and so I think there was a lot of I could see a parallel where this seemed safer because it still existed in the real world. You know?
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Off the Cuffs, because since you were last on, this show has grown and grown and grown. I mean, before there wasn't even the Jukebox Podcast Network that it is the flagship show of. So, like, can you tell us a little bit about how the show's grown and what the reception has been?
The reception has been overwhelmingly positive. We were, the last time I was on this show, we talked a little bit about how we felt like we were the only one doing what we were doing, and that was conversational style, where like a lot of the other BDSM podcasts were kind of dry and technical.
Technical?
And
how do you make a BDSM podcast dry and technical? No, it's a funny concept to hear you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like the Mark Maron of the BDSM podcast world. You're bringing the heart, you're bringing the humor, you're bringing the connection with the people.
But no, there really has been... there have been a few that have popped up in our wake, including one on the Podcast Jukebox Network, Proud to be Kinky. We love them. I'm not calling them a ripoff at all.
But
what I'm saying is I think there was a need there for more, just conversational and normalizing the concept of BDSM.
Yeah, not being ashamed of what your kinks are, because that could really,
Listen, without shame, I don't know where I would be. So
maybe your kink is shame, Sean.
Well, yeah,
that would track.
Right.
You've had some great guests on. For people who are not like necessarily into the world of BDSM, one guest that people might be familiar with, and I'm blanking on his name suddenly, but the director of Tickled was on, which was a great interview. Yeah.
Yes. What a great episode that was.
Tell us about some of the people you've had on.
Oh, I'll talk about David Farrier because the amazing thing is, I'll give credit where credit's due. And talk about all the research that Dick Wound did into this. We had a guest on whose kink was tickling, and so just in doing research to talk to her, we found the movie Tickled, and we went, "Oh, this is fascinating." And Dick Wound immediately said, "You know what? I'm going to email this guy and see if he wants to do our show." And it wound up. He did, like, HBO handled most of the promotion. He did exactly 2 interviews, us and the Slash Film podcast.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, they could talk about it as a film. We could talk about the lifestyle of the weird, kinky, tickling guy. So that was a pretty high-profile guest. We've had a couple of porn actors on, including Rain DeGray recently.
Okay.
Actors.
Oh, actresses.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah, my dad was really happy about Rain DeGray. He does not listen to our show, but I told him that we had her on, and he was pretty excited that I got to talk to her.
Have you had any male porn stars on?
Not yet.
You know what? For years, even me and Sean have talked about getting a male porn star, and then we don't do anything about it. But we've talked about it.
They don't exactly, percolate in our circles.
But because we've had a couple of female porn stars on, and I just always imagined the other side of that conversation would be a lot different.
Sadder.
Yeah, well, who knows?
We'll work on that. For 2018, we're going to get you a stunt cuck.
To talk to somebody that does BDSM porn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll talk to anybody
who lives in LA.
Oh, okay.
We know people that know people.
We'll hook it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so So what is the new podcast that you're going to be telling the cult story on? You said it so far remains nameless.
Yeah, it's Dick and Kelly from the show that's no longer on our network, Parking Lot Radio. No, nothing happened with Parking Lot Radio. They just hosted on a site that was free, and then decided to start charging, and they didn't pay in time.
Oh.
They were ending the show anyway. But what sucks is that it's disappeared.
So you can't even go back so this is going to be a new storytelling show on the network.
Yes.
And tell everybody where they could. I mean, I guess iTunes is the answer, but I want you to tell everybody where they could find the network, where they could find Off the Cuffs, and where they could find you, Max.
Okay. I'm on Twitter at Minimus Maxim. Minimus Maximus was taken, so I'm Minimus Maxim. If you're on FetLife, I'm at Minimus_Maximus. I don't really use the Minimus Maximus Facebook page anymore because I had been using it through my phone and somebody found me. And wanted to know who Minimus Maximus was, so so Twitter and FetLife are probably the best places to find me. Off the Cuffs is at Off the Cuffs on Twitter and Instagram, and on FetLife.
And if you are a good listener of the podcast, you have listened to Off the Cuffs. 1, because we've had them on before, and 2, because it's a terrific show. So give it a listen. Max, do you you want to? We lost him again.
Hold on. There you are. You back?
I just said glowing. I said, that one was on you, I think.
Yeah.
But I just said a whole bunch of glowing things about your podcast, and you missed it.
So you have to go back and listen, but they're all good.
Thank you. And of course, we're on iTunes and pretty much every podcast app.
Where good podcasts are sold. So I want to ask you, as someone who runs a podcast that deals with sex, and as someone who operates in the world of BDSM, a world of sex workers and things like that, is that world been buzzing like the entertainment world out here has been with all the sexual assault charges, all the stuff that is so right now in the conversation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's I don't know if your guests are particularly familiar with the website FetLife. It's essentially kinky Facebook.
Yeah.
And every day there are 2 or 3 trending articles about the latest sexual harassment charge, the latest, idea on what can we do, what constitutes consent, toxic masculinity, just all these topics that keep coming up. Because it's as sex positive and, as progressive as the kink community likes to present itself, there can still be, just like any other community, there will be terrible people, that want to hurt people. So, it's really been buzzing.
Sean, so we've had, I don't even know if Al Franken was a thing the last episode we did. That's how fast these things, though, are coming out. The big one this week, until probably something happens tomorrow.
I haven't checked Twitter the last hour.
Yeah, Matt Lauer was the big one.
You know what? He's always been a creep.
Has he?
I never liked him. Matt
Lauer.
From NBC. Seems to be a lot of this going on at NBC, just saying.
Who else at NBC?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is a whole other level of shittiness.
And Andrew, on people less famous would be Andrew Kreisberg, who's the executive producer of The Flash and Arrow and Legends Tomorrow, so he's out. There was the executive producer of not Gilmore Girls, Heart of Dixie, maybe? No, not one of those WB shows.
Okay.
Or CW shows. But yeah, so you had the...
it feels like any man who had power.
Yeah, basically.
Garrison Keillor.
Oh, Garrison
I
Keillor.
was surprised by Garrison Keillor.
Yes, the well-educated Lutherans of Minnesota.
Garrison Keillor is because you don't want to think of him as sexual in any way to begin with.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And he wrote a really weird article about it. But what's interesting is when these guys now get outed and people start looking into past interviews they did or past encounters, and everything gets reframed through this lens. So like with Matt Lauer specifically, he had this interview with Anne Hathaway where he just was like slut-shaming her for 20 minutes.
Yeah,
And, Charlie Rose did all his indiscretions in a dark room. But when they go back and re-examine some of their statements or some of their interactions through this framework, you're like, oh, you were always a terrible creep, but for some reason no one was paying attention, or you got a pass, or this didn't raise any flags, but now...
Have you seen...
Yeah.
Have you seen that scene on Louis recontextualized? That's really
Louis is a whole separate issue.
I mean, you mean the one with Pamela Adlon with the "you're not even good at rape" scene?
No, there's a scene in which like they do a fake, recreate like a Fox News interview.
Oh, yeah.
Talks about masturbating and thinking of women while masturbating.
He's
was that for like season 1 or something?
That was early on in the show, and that was like he was like spokesman for masturbation.
That's right.
In it,
right.
Well, we talked about this a little bit because the Louis thing had come out the last time we did an episode, and we talked about a little bit how Louis. What's a little different about Louis is that you see a man working out his demons with his art in like a way that now, like you said, recontextualized, is now really creepy.
Yeah.
If he'd been able to, not done these other things he did. Whereas with, Matt Lauer and stuff and Charlie Rose, now you search into these interviews and see what they were saying. It's very strange. I was watching...
your new friend, Mark Harris, announced last week when the Charlie Rose news came out. He said, I just recorded an interview with Charlie Rose 2 days ago, but I assume none of you will see it now at this point.
Well, Mark Harris had an interesting tweet right before Thanksgiving, and he said, I am not even the most tuned in, and I am aware of at least 6 articles about major people in media and entertainment that are being currently worked
Well, apparently
on.
the Matt Lauer thing was in the works.
Well, that's the thing. And then the next day, John Lasseter article came out in the Hollywood Reporter, and Mark Harris just tweeted John Lasseter. And then the other day, before I even knew what was going on with Matt Lauer, I saw Mark Harris's tweet in the morning that just said, 2, Matt Lauer. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So, I mean, according to him at least, we have at least 4 more major ones being worked on as we speak.
Derek Jeter better watch out.
Hey, fuck you. Let me ask you. Well, that is a good question. Now, I mean, Max, is there anyone at this point that would surprise you? Because it's hard to be surprised by any of these people now.
Right after John Lasseter and Garrison Keillor, it's impossible to be surprised. Maybe Steve Burns from Blue's Clues. That might be surprising.
Bill Nye, the grumpy guy.
Yeah.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Look, in all honesty, if like tomorrow there was an article about Tom Hanks, I'd be legitimately shocked. If tomorrow there was an article about Steven Spielberg, I'd be legitimately
Honestly, I would
shocked.
not be shocked about Steven Spielberg.
Really? You think he's a creep?
I don't know.
Let me tell you what, you're Monday morning quarterbacking a lot of this creep stuff, though. Everyone's suddenly like, Matt Lauer was always a guy.
He was always creep. Look at his
I never thought of him either way.
Creep. I would not be shocked if it was like Steven Spielberg, not like raping women with a auto-enacted, like desk door lock, But I could see him being a little too friendly with the hugs on occasion.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not going to condone being too friendly with the hugs. And, you're hearing about Frank and, like, he'd take a photo with a woman and be a little too friendly with her. But, familiar, I should say. But, I was watching Joy Reid the other day. And she's really smart about all this stuff. And she had a panel discussing basically, the Republicans trying to frame Al Franken as Roy Moore. And she was bringing up the idea of we can't, or maybe we shouldn't hold everyone on the same level because then it becomes almost meaningless. And I get that, and that makes a lot of sense to me, but also I understand this is like kind of a revolution, and revolutions are messy, and people are going to get sucked into it, and maybe they should. I don't know how I feel about that, because I'm of two minds of that. If you've done something wrong, you need to face consequences, but,
If you did something creepy, like how far does it go?
Yes. I mean, what do you think, Max?
I'm with you there. I think we have to frame it as any unwanted action has to be considered non-consensual. Whether or not it's okay, I'm going to bring up Dick Wound again.
Where did he touch you?
Well, you've known him for a long time. You know he doesn't like to hug people.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, we have mutual friends that are very kind of touchy-feely people. And when we first started hanging out with Dick, if we were saying goodbye or something, people would go to hug him, and, he'd have to say, I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable with that. And, okay, I get that I have completely reversed the gender here. And I know it's not the same thing. I can't imagine what women, especially women in subservient positions to the men that we've been talking about, must face on a daily basis. But it's, the part of your brain that's going to go, oh, it's just a hug, it's harmless. While I understand that sentiment, I think you have to draw a firm line. And so, like, if that person went to hug him again, even though you can say, oh, it's a hug, they forgot. No, he's not comfortable with that. And like you said, this is the first time, really, that I can remember all of this coming out at once. I mean, other than the Clarence Thomas hearings, where I think that was the first time in the culture and anybody really understood the concept of sexual harassment at all. Or it was, at least brought to the wide culture. But this is really the first time where all these men are being accused of behaving inappropriately. So I think one of the things that hopefully comes out of this is that we can start defining what is appropriate behavior.
Well, I mean, it's not like we need to find it. It's not exactly, the Ark of the Covenant or the Holy Grail. It's, it's always been kind of clear what is acceptable, appropriate. Amber Tamblyn wrote a very interesting op-ed in the New York Times today or yesterday?
I believe today.
Yeah, where, she was talking about how being in like a meeting with male executives, Hollywood types, and they're like, well, when does Louis get his career back? She's like, no, never. Like, he fucked up. It's done. Like, right. You don't have a right to get your career back. You either, act like a fucking human being or, we kick you out. It's not like a timeout situation. So I thought that was, right. And how, now all of this creates this time, space, and mental, psychic, emotional room for women to reclaim, to stake out claims, and to, create a space that is free, hopefully, from all of this, just awfulness. So, men, just stop it. You're all terrible. Every man.
Let me rephrase that, because you're right. We've always known what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. So more to the point, where hopefully other men will start understanding what's inappropriate.
You know when you've made someone
And
uncomfortable.
why.
You know, listen, when you are getting the night maintenance crew to install a desk-operated lock for your door, you're crossing some lines there. You know, rule of thumb: you should never be in a situation where you are pantsless with a coworker walking in to your office.
Yeah,
just basic things.
That seems fair.
Yeah, it's like you know what you're doing. Don't get rape locks installed.
So, Sean, I would say this is about the 4th podcast in a row where we've talked about this
I was
topic.
just thinking about that. I'm like, haven't men suffered enough?
What are we, I mean, if something big happens, though, and then between now and the next podcast, we're probably going to end up talking about it again.
Yeah, we'll talk about Zemeckis Gate.
Oh, Jesus, no. No.
Well, when the Spielberg allegations come out,
yeah, be like make the post look like
that would be
BFG.
That would
Crush.
That would be terrible.
Okay, what would you do? Hold on. If allegations came out about Oliver Stone.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me in the least. I'm assuming they're going to. I'm also assuming one of the articles that hasn't come out has to be about Bryan Singer because, as I've said before,
X-Men Apocalypse was terrible.
Everyone knows somebody who was assaulted by Bryan Singer. Like, I've met guys who've been like, yeah, Bryan Singer was a real creep to me. Like, so I got to imagine that.
I remember when Bryan Singer made Apt Pupil, there was a little controversy about a shower scene in that movie.
Yeah. And that was in the late 90s.
What would you do if you found out that, I don't know, let's say... Oh, shit, I just blanked. I had a good one.
You had somebody I really admired.
No, I had someone who was, like, super creepy, just like...
Oh.
Yeah, on the surface. Charlie Sheen was a creep.
Oh, Charlie Sheen, yeah, well... Yeah.
But, hold on, would you be happy to find out that everyone involved with The Big Bang Theory was a creep?
Yes,
okay.
I would, because I don't enjoy that show.
It would validate all of your feelings about it.
Except once I went into a Starbucks and the woman thought I was Johnny Galecki. So if bad things come out about him and I walk back into that Starbucks, she might throw a coffee in my face.
Well, this is the risk that you run, just, with those glasses.
Moving on.
By the way, on The Big Bang Theory, I have high-functioning autism, so, please never call me Sheldon, because it's not funny.
We'll call you Raj. It's not funny and a little racist.
Yeah.
We're on this podcast network. It occurs to me we're part of the problem. Max, there are too many podcasts. I don't know.
Oh, agreed.
I don't know if what's happening to us is happening to you, but I can't deal with it anymore. Yeah. My podcast feed is backed up like most people's DVRs get backed up. It is getting worse and worse, and I'm thinking of trimming some of the fat on this.
And it's like stuff we like, and it's networks. It's not even that like we're going out hunting, because there's a million podcasts. So it's not like we're going out and looking for new shows because like, oh shit, I got to spare 20 seconds while I piss. It's podcast networks that we love just keep adding content. It's like, I don't need this much stuff.
So let me ask you, so you feel this, I mean, what are you listening to? What shows, besides like even stuff outside of the Jukebox network, what are you listening to? And are you able to keep up with it?
Okay, I actually did trim the fat because other than sexuality ones, which I really have to listen to for research, it's mostly I listen to the Flophouse bi-weekly. Bi-weekly, I can deal with that.
I noticed there's a lot of shows that I do listen to that come out bi-weekly, but then I get thrown because I listen to a lot of Slate stuff, and I know you do too, Sean. And Max, I don't know if you listen to any Slate podcasts, but if you are a Slate Plus member,
it doesn't end.
Yeah.
I end up having to delete about 5 podcasts a day that I'm never going to listen to that they upload.
It's like, oh, here's 4 episodes on Reconstruction. Can't listen to it. Oh, you want to learn about Watergate? Nope, don't have time.
You know what? I started listening to that Watergate
and I'm like, I'm out.
I used to listen to Pop Culture Gabfest. And
Yes.
I had to cut it out because it was constant.
Well, then there's
And they kept recommending other Slate shows.
the worst also is Hang Up and Listen, which is their sports podcast, which I love, but they
I
do
used to
this
listen
section.
to that too.
They do this thing called After Balls, which is like each one of them gets to bring their crazy, weird, fun sports story from history. The problem is each After Ball runs about 15 minutes, so the Hang Up and Listen podcast without the Slate Plus section will run like an hour and a half. And it's like, seriously, there isn't enough to, like I don't need 40 minutes on, the first woman to win the New York Marathon. Like, it's just too much.
There are very few podcasts. And then sometimes I see.
So it's the Chris Hardwick. Well, Chris Hardwick is the Chris Hardwick podcast.
Well, Chris Hardwick, I'll only listen to him if he has someone on that I'm interested in hearing from. I won't just listen to that. Same thing with Mark Maron. I'm not gonna listen just out of loyalty, but like the Slate ones, I gotta listen to Political Gabfest, Cultural Gabfest. I listen still to Trump Cast. I know you're out on that.
I stopped listening to they had the Trump Cast, which is on 3 times a week, and I cut that.
Well, I listen to
out.
Double X Gabfest, Represent.
that.
I listen to Slate Money, which is excellent. I listen to Spoiler Special, but then I listen to all the Ringer podcasts too.
Jesus.
Which is like the Bill Simmons, so it's like pop culture and sports. But the truth is, like, I save the baseball and the basketball and the football episodes for night, and I listen to them while I'm falling asleep, so I don't really, I just need to hear something. It does, I'm not really focusing on it.
My God.
And
I'm from New York. I can't give support to Bill Simmons.
I'm a big Bill Simmons fan, I know. And then I listen to the Kevin and Bean Show every day, which is an hour and 40 minutes.
You are more podcast than man.
Well, because I listen to it while I'm working. I get a lot of good podcasts.
I don't listen while I'm working.
See, I got one earbud in during the day. Unless I'm in front of other human beings, I just listen to podcasts.
On my lunch break, I listen, and I go for an hour walk on my lunch break, and I listen.
Yeah.
I used to read on my lunch break, but who's got time for books?
Fuck that.
When I've got so many books on my shelf, I can't
Plotz,
get to.
Dickerson, and Basil to listen to.
Yeah, I got so many books on my shelf that I'm not reading because I have to listen to a podcast instead.
Metcalf, Turner, and Stevens.
And then, of course, this is the time of year that either Gabfest or Pop Culture Happy Hour or Esquire will do their best books of the year, and so I have 30 more books I have to read now.
Reading for losers.
To these fucking podcasts.
I
try not to get sucked into the recommendations, Also, I'm not driving to upstate New York to go to Steve Metcalf's little bakery.
But you know what? I got sucked into a Slate recommendation of a podcast, and then I ended up listening to this.
Oh, the porn one?
Yes. This actually, Max, you might want to give this one a listen because it's I highly recommend it. It's from John Ronson, and it's called The Butterfly Effect. It's only 7 episodes, and they're about a half hour each. And and I'm assuming he's going to do more seasons where he does the butterfly effect of something else. But this first season was about Pornhub. And it was about how Pornhub got created and then the unintended consequences of it, which, like, for example, pushing a lot of porn stars into doing more custom videos. And then they start to get into the lives of some of the people in these custom videos or who request these custom videos. And it just kind of goes out from that. Wow. It even gets into a thing about how, it talks about all these other unintended consequences, like impotency is up among millennials, they think there's a direct correlation because of the overstimulation from things like Pornhub, and it's very fascinating. And he talks to a ton of people on all sides of everything. Talks to a lot of porn stars. It's a fascinating listen. The Butterfly Effect.
But did he get any male porn stars?
What was that?
Did he get any male porn stars? Oh, he got them.
Yeah, he got everybody. It was really interesting. And now here's another fucking podcast. I'm telling people to listen.
You're going to the bathroom 7 times a day because you just need some time to listen to podcasts.
You were talking about having too much time. I am a fan of The Best Show. Since it was on terrestrial radio, and now it's just on internet radio, and then it comes out as a podcast the next day. That's a 3-hour show.
Nah, I'm sorry, can't do that. It's like the Kevin Klein podcast, or whatever. Kevin, not Klein, Kevin.
I don't know.
Who's the other Kevin? Famous
Kevin Pollak.
Kevin Pollak. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No time for that. Or like Joe Rogan does like 5-hour podcasts.
I listen to How Did This Get Made?
How did this get made?
What do you?
I don't listen to that anymore. Actually, I
because like
stopped.
the Flophouse better.
They just got. It was too ridiculous for me. And
You stopped listening to How Did This Get Made? That was your favorite podcast.
I stopped because you know what? All they did was just scream, especially the live shows. They were so amped up, it would just became screaming and ridiculousness.
I still laugh.
They
at
lost.
it.
They lost the art.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm not even subscribed anymore.
I'm going to agree with you on How Did This Get Made, because it seems to me now that they're intentionally misunderstanding the films.
Yeah, it just got stupid. I'm out.
I don't know. I was
I
laughing.
just want Mantzoukas to have like an interview show.
I was laughing out loud listening to their breakdown of Neil Diamond's The Jazz Singer.
And also the
today.
other problem was like I haven't seen 3/4 of these films, and I'm not going to go watch the Whoopi Goldberg, dinosaur movie. Yeah.
One more podcast that I feel need to mention that just finished a season that I love.
S-Town.
No.
Serial.
No, fuck that. You Must Remember This.
Yes.
Have you listened to the new season?
That's not the new season. I've just
You know
been
what I
kind of
love about that and Hardcore History? They come out when they want to.
Oh, I love Hardcore History. If you want a 4.5-hour episode, that's good shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hardcore History. And also Dan Carlin, not Dan Carlin, The History of Rome and Revolutions. Yeah, Dan Carlin.
Oh, yeah.
Phenomenal. I'm going to see him on Monday. He's signing at the Grove.
So, clearly, we are listening to too many podcasts, and we hope now you, dear listeners, are taking all these recommendations
Yes.
and ruining your lives.
Ruin.
Can I say one more thing? Let me say one more thing about this.
Yeah, sure.
I was asked. I was a guest on a podcast called Prince Track by Track, where this guy is literally going through the entire Prince catalog, track by track. Every episode is another track. It's a 15-minute show, and I figured I'm on it. I should subscribe to it because, I was on a couple episodes. I talked about with you and Sister, and they were great. But that was another one where it just started backing up. I just went, I really don't have 15 minutes to listen to Purple Rain right now. You know?
Fuck you, Prince.
Or listen to two people talk about Purple Rain. So, Darren, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'll get back on it eventually.
All right, moving on. Everyone loves Pixar. I mean, everybody does. From the start with the Toy Story movies, everybody just...
Skipping a Bug's Life.
Everybody loves Pixar. And the new Pixar film, Coco, is as lovable as it gets. It's predictably cute and funny, but also deals with deep themes on death and family, and there's great music, and my experience seeing it was nearly perfect. Nearly. Now, traditionally, before all these movies, there's a short film. And before Coco, there was, to be fair, a Disney animation, not Pixar, but there was a short called Olaf's Frozen Adventure. Olaf from Frozen, that snowman that told a couple of good jokes and you tolerated to get through like the good music and stories in Frozen. Well, this short, quote unquote short, is not a short. It is 21 fucking minutes long. It was endless. I was sitting in the theater getting ready and like, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? Families were confused. I saw people like asking each other, like, are we in the right theater? And I even started to wonder, like, what is happening? When will this end? I almost left the theater myself. There are theaters that are putting fucking warnings up outside, warning audiences that you're going to sit through a 21-minute short. Now, here's the thing. Like I said, I liked Frozen, but the problem is...
Have you seen that there's a website devoted to telling you when to go to the theater so that you miss the short?
Well, let me tell you what. This does not surprise me, because this thing is fucking... Here's the greater sin of it than it being long. It's just fucking terrible. Everything feels cheap, including they cram 5 songs into this 21 minutes, and not one of them is catchy. At least you walked out of Frozen, like, singing about snowman and letting it go and stuff. You had stuff, whether you like the songs or not, they were stuck in your fucking head. You know what's not stuck in your fucking head? Olaf singing about God knows what, about like knocking on doors and meeting Jewish people, which does happen in this short. In Mexico, where Coco is the #1 highest grossing film of all time already, the theaters have taken to cutting out the short because they don't want to subject the Mexicans to this Scandinavian nightmare. And that's why you, Olaf's Frozen Adventure, this week's enemy of the podcast, go fuck yourselves. Do yourself a favor. If you're seeing Coco, go to that website Max just mentioned and show up like 30 minutes late. Fuck you. Oh my God, this movie was terrible. It's the worst movie of the year.
Well, so this Olaf short was apparently supposed to be a TV special, which, fine, jam it on a Sunday night, sometime mid-December. But they were like, they got greedy, they got Lassiter, boners, and they're like, you know what? The people need to see Olaf's Frozen Adventure. So, last night I went to go see Frozen. And I got to the theater early. Coco, sorry. I went to go see Coco. And I got to the theater early, and I went up to the man before I paid for my ticket and said, if I'm going to the 7:25 screening, what time do I get there so I miss the Olaf's Frozen nightmare? And he, walkie-talkie, is like, if he's going to Coco and he doesn't want to see the Olaf, the Frozen thing, what time does he get there? And heard back, half hour. So between the trailers. So I got there at 7:55, and guess what? Still 10 minutes left of Olaf's Frozen Adventure. Ooh. So I sat there and I put in my earbuds and I listened to a podcast and I watched what was happening and I watched him harassing Jews, like a fucking SS soldier in a Polish village, in 1941.
Were there like a lot of Jews in 17th century Scandinavia?
He's banging on doors. I don't know. There's one Jew. Listen, there's one Jew in Ingmar Bergman's Fanny och Alexander. But that's it. I'm pretty sure this was not the Jew that Olaf... Also, I'm pretty sure there was some Kwanzaa kids in there, too.
I don't know if we just think we saw Kwanzaa kids.
They had, little, menorahs on their heads.
I don't know.
There were so many Jews in this Scandinavian short.
Which is...
And it's Josh Gad?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Josh Gad, it's so funny because whenever I see Josh Gad, I get annoyed. But I saw him on Broadway in Book of Mormon. I was like, oh, you're fucking
Well, you're
great.
a big 1600 Penn fan.
Oh, yeah. That was the show. That was the thing.
John Lovett from Pod Save America wrote that.
What were you saying, Max?
Great history of Hollywood trying to make movie stars out of Broadway stars that very rarely...
No, I think Josh Gad is actually a star. I got nothing against him, but this short was just, and people, when it was over, people were just, you could feel the relief in the theater.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to see this thing. And I'll tell you what, this is having the opposite effect, because I liked Frozen enough that I will obviously go see Frozen 2, but you know what, now I'm like, no, I might not be, because if it's as cheap as this bullshit... It was cheap. Well, that was the big problem. It was cheap.
It was, because it was a TV show. Well, do you want to watch a snowman? Do you want to watch him Jew? Okay, I think it's the episode title.
Was Coco as good as the Book of Life? Because didn't DreamWorks...
Book of Life was delightful. It's interesting. There have been 2 Day of the Dead animated films come out in the last 2 years. Book of Life, which is executive produced by Guillermo del Toro, is very, very different than Coco. They're both delightful. Book of Life is a wonderful movie. They're just both very sweet films. Coco was I'm like borderline masterpiece. I fucking loved it. I think I'm gonna buy it when it comes out. It was a beautiful movie. It's really good.
Not gonna lie, it took me a little while to get into it because I had the taste of Olaf in my mouth.
Ugh, sucking on that carrot.
Max, before we go, we always like to end on a weird note, and this is a story that delighted me today, last week. The Navy admits that one of their pilots drew a giant penis in the skies above Washington State. I don't know if you've seen this.
I saw that.
Yes, there's a giant penis. A spokesman from the Naval Air Station Whidbey Island
Titicaca
in Altfield, Washington said the unnamed crew behind the giant sky dong, we find this absolutely unacceptable, of zero training value, and we are holding the crew accountable. The FAA will not take action because, quote, unless the act poses a safety risk There is nothing they can do about it. They cannot police morality. Giant
Sky dog
in the sky. I don't know. I think that I'm amused by it. I think there should be more sky penises.
Seriously, that would just, increase everyone's happiness quotient. I think we need more sky dicks.
Yeah. Who drew the sky dicks?
Who
drew the sky dicks?
I haven't watched that. I think I will, though. Yeah. I heard good things about it. So, the Navy got a sense of humor. You know what? Promise. We don't have enough wars for them. Send these boys to fight.
We should go send. They should
sky dick over Pyongyang.
Yeah, exactly. Draw a bunch of sky dicks. Anyway, Max, thank you. What were you about to say?
I was going to say that should have been the thing in the beginning of Top Gun, not the flying upside down.
The sky dick?
Drawing the giant sky.
Well, if we have Justin Marks back on, who is the writer of Top Gun 2, we can recommend to him that maybe the movie needs to start with a sky dick.
I want to see set to danger zone a plane, and you see it's drawing something, and then just sky dick. And into the danger zone.
Top Gun 2 sky dick.
Is Top Gun 2 still in development?
It's one of these movies that I think it'll get canceled eventually when Tom Cruise just kills himself making a Mission Impossible.
I think it's in development in that area of development we call development hell.
Yeah, no one does anyone want a Top Gun 2?
I don't even like Top Gun 1.
Oh, hot take.
Hot take, yeah.
Listen, R.I.P. Tony Scott. You're a big Days of Thunderhead, though.
I don't like Days of Thunder either. I don't like early Tony Scott. I like later Tony Scott. Right before the end.
Deja vu fan.
Yeah.
True Romance.
True Romance is great.
True Romance and
Crimson Tide is great.
No, but what's the one with Denzel? Man on Fire is also a fucking masterpiece.
He made some Tony Scott made some great films. But his
second last movie was like Chris Pine and Denzel, the Train movie.
Yeah,
that is a solid movie.
That movie's better than it should be.
Yeah, that is a damn good movie. The Train on Fire.
No, what is it? Unstoppable.
Train on Fire.
Yeah.
Go see that, people.
Go see Train on Fire.
Go Netflix a Train on Fire.
That's the one takeaway we can give you from this episode.
And stay away from that bridge in San Pedro.
Max, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
And thanks for, I know it's a weeknight and you're over there on the East Coast, so thanks for, putting up with our late hours.
No problem.
So, before we go, one more time, tell the people where they can find you.
Okay. On Twitter at Minimus Maxim, on FetLife at Minimus_Maximus, and the podcast is at Off the Cuffs on pretty much all social media.
Perfect.
Sean.
Right. You can find me at all forms of social media at the Sean David. I don't know. I have a new story. I mailed it out to some friends. If you guys are interested, tweet at me. I'll send it to you. It's good.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I've read it. It is good. I like it. And that reminds me, that was something I wanted to talk to you about after the podcast. Or I can give you my thoughts on the show.
Let's finish this Dog and Pony show.
You can follow me on Twitter at The Real Will Link. I'm also going to be a guest on the Kill by Kill podcast.
Yes.
So listen to yet another podcast.
But only if you want to jump in like the fourth kill of Friday the 13th Part 8, Freddy Takes Manhattan.
Jason Takes Manhattan.
Oh, shit. Jason Takes Manhattan, yeah.
And it's funny, I was never a big Friday the 13th guy, which is why I don't listen to Kill by Kill all the time. But now that I'm listening, now that I watched Jason Takes Manhattan, I am listening to all of them and loving them.
I love that show. They're great.
They're a lot of fun.
Cinematary, so...
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. I get to talk about some junkies getting killed by Jason.
Well, they deserve it. So what happens. Kids, stay off drugs.
Thank you so much, Max.
And coming up next week...
Oh, next week, sorry. Yeah, next week we're going to have Laura McGee on. She is the star of a very funny web series called Lady Pilot.
Okay. Ladies can't be pilots.
Well, we're going to get into it.
And then, end of the year?
End of the year, as we end every year, is the new tradition. We are going to end it with our good friend Alex Stein, who has also started his own podcast that you can all listen to.
Which you were on and I listened to.
Yes.
It's a good episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on that note, Max, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome.
For the Will Sean Podcast, I'm Sean David.
I'm Will Link.
And we're finished.
We're finished.